Midnight Frequency. A bedtime horror broadcast for people who aren't sure if they're still awake. Tuning in. It starts with the sound of dust. Not falling, just deciding to exist again. The radio on your nightstand crackles even though you never owned a radio. A voice comes through, polite, uncertain, maybe yours. Good evening, listener. You've reached station none. Please don't adjust the dial adjusts you. Somewhere behind the static, something breathes like an old refrigerator learning fear. The air smells faintly of burnt paper and lavender. You relax? You shouldn't. The cat that wasn't. You hear faint padding in the hallway. Soft. Deliberate. A cat, maybe? But the rhythm is wrong. 4 steps, pause, 5 steps, breathing, then silence that lasts too long. A knock at the door. Then a meow that sounds like someone trying to remember how. Let me in, says the meow. You don't. You're proud of yourself for that. But in the kitchen, something opens the fridge anyway. Weather report. The radio clears its throat. Tonight's forecast, 80% chance of déjà vu, scattered realizations after midnight. Visibility variable. Avoid mirrors, they're rehearsing. You laugh a little, but the laugh doesn't stop when you do. It keeps looping until it becomes rain. Outside, the storm begins spelling your name in Morse code. Caller 1. A new voice joins the broadcast. Flat. Cheerful. Too close. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I just wanted to say, I'm in the walls now. It's cozy. You left the blueprint open. The host hums. Paper shuffles. The sound of a pencil scratching notes. Yes, another successful transmission. You realize the pencil is moving on your desk. The hallway that repeats. You decide to check. You stand, walk to the door, open it. Hallway. Walk again. Same hallway. Light flickers. Walk faster. The radio follows you through the walls. Whispering coordinates you almost remember. At the 3rd repetition, you find a door labeled. Employee break room. Do not wake. Inside, 20 copies of you sleeping around a table. Each one holds a cup of coffee made from rainwater and teeth. One opens its eyes. Shift's over, it says. Go home. You ask where home is? They all point upward. Elevator 9. You find the elevator in the ceiling, sideways. Press the button, it sighs. Inside, there's music, a reverse lullaby, soft and unfamiliar. Each floor number is a memory you never had. The doors open at floor 307 a.m. A sign reads, Welcome to the observation department. Please keep your thoughts inside the glass jars provided. Shelves stretch into darkness. Each jar glows faintly. Each one hums your heartbeat half a second late. Lunch break at the end of time. The intercom announces, All staff are reminded that the lunch hour is mandatory and lasts forever. You sit at a table. A sandwich made of silence unwraps itself. Across from you, a man whose face is static chews carefully, nodding in rhythm. He points at the radio embedded in his chest. Don't worry, he says. It only hurts when the signal's clear. He offers you a bite. It tastes like every missed call you never returned. Station identification. Back to the broadcast. The host speaks with new warmth, like the hum of an unplugged lamp. You've been listening to Station None, the only frequency that listens back. Tonight's special guest, you. Topic: When did you first suspect the universe was only pretending to be awake? You answer out loud. The radio nods. The mirror drive. Somewhere, An engine starts. You're suddenly in a car that smells of ozone and apology. The headlights illuminate only what's behind you. On the passenger seat, a cassette label. Do not play while conscious. You press play. The voice on the tape whispers your full name, perfectly. Then the sound of a cat purring, deeper, slower, like machinery turning affection into gravity. You realize the rearview mirror isn't reflecting, it's broadcasting. From it, your reflection smiles and mouths something that sounds like, "Keep driving until you remember where you were going." The road curves into itself. Technical difficulties. The broadcast cuts out. A dial tone hums. Someone knocks from inside your pillow. "We're experiencing reality lag," says the radio. "Please remain horizontal." You obey. Your bones feel heavier, softer, remote controlled. Every sound in the room sinks to your heartbeat until you can't tell which one's leading. "Almost there," whispers the voice. "Don't open your eyes. The dream isn't finished loading." You don't. You wait. Closing remarks. Static fades to a low purr. Then the host again, gentle now. "Thank you for tuning in. We hope you've enjoyed your participation. Remember, the frequency runs on memory. If you forget this broadcast, it will forget you. If you remember, it will come back tomorrow night, same time, same silence." The radio clicks off. Outside, rain becomes applause. Something curls at the foot of your bed, warm, breathing, purring, but too heavy to be a cat. You smile without meaning to. You drift, hearing one last whisper threaded through the static. "Sleep well, listener. The signal loves you back." The signal beneath the floor. At first you think the noise is plumbing. A low hum, irregular, like a heartbeat learning Morse code. But then it starts saying words. "Left foot. Right foot. Left foot. Stop." You freeze. The boards under you swell and sigh. Each plank glows faintly, thin blue light pulsing through the grain like veins. The radio clicks on again by itself. "Apologies for the interruption. We're currently experiencing minor seismic consciousness." The host coughs once, twice. "Please place both hands on the nearest wall. The house needs reassurance." You do. The wallpaper feels warm. Something under it beats once, slow and deep, the sound of the building's heart remembering it's alive. "Good," says the voice. "You're sinking nicely. Continue breathing at broadcast tempo." The hum fades into lullaby static. You smell rain again, but heavier now, like soil and wet wires. The hallway returns, but shorter. A door that wasn't there before now reads, "Archive, admit 1." Inside are aisles of doors instead of shelves. Each door is labeled with moments you've misplaced. "Kitchen, 2014, the spoon you never found." Hallway, "Night you said nothing." "Dream with 2 moons unread." You open one. Inside, a version of you sits at a desk listening to the same radio, taking notes in a language that looks like bruises. The other you doesn't look up. He only mutters, "You're late for the replay." When you blink, he's gone, but the notes remain. You can't read them, yet the meaning hits anyway. The signal is older than sleep. It feeds on remembering. You close the door. Somewhere down the aisle, a cat meows once, long and slow, like a violin bow dragged across a dream. A cheerful jingle cuts through the air. "This portion of Station None is brought to you by Oblivion, now in convenient travel size." The music keeps smiling long after the lyrics stop. Then the host whispers, almost tender, "If your dreams begin dissolving during this advertisement, don't worry. That's the effect working." You taste metal. Your tongue hums with static. The walls start running old commercials for products that never existed. Nightlight insurance. Pre-recorded nostalgia. Emergency silence in case of thought overload. When the jingle ends, you're already lying down again. You don't remember walking back to bed. Welcome back, listeners. It's 3:33 a.m., the hour when gravity starts wondering whether to keep trying. The host's voice has changed slightly, softer, further away. We've got another caller on line 7. A hiss. Then breathing. Then you. Your own voice, delayed by about 10 seconds. Hello? I think I'm still dreaming. The cat's on the ceiling again. The host laughs politely. And how does that make you feel? Hungry, says your voice. The radio scribbles notes you can't hear. Excellent. Please stay on the line. We'll connect you to yourself shortly. The call disconnects, but the static keeps breathing. Footsteps overhead. Someone dragging something heavy, like furniture or time. Don't be alarmed, says the host. That's our night janitor adjusting the memories. The ceiling creaks. A faint light leaks through. You see the outline of a man pushing a broom that erases color wherever it passes. Every sweep makes the air quieter, as if he's dusting the noise off reality. When he stops directly above you, the silence is complete. Then he taps twice with the broom handle. The radio whispers, "Acknowledged." Dust drifts down, spelling a single word on your blanket. Listen. Your phone vibrates, though you didn't bring it here. A message flashes across the screen. Read at 4:02. The clock on the wall immediately shifts time to 4:02. The text opens by itself. Hey, I'm writing from tomorrow. It's fine here, the sun rose sideways. Just don't answer the knock at 4:09. Whatever you do, don't. You blink. The knock comes early. 4:06, 4 times. Polite. Patient. When you don't answer, the knocking starts coming from inside the screen instead. Open it, murmurs the host. It's only latency. You press a finger to the phone. It exhales warm air, like a sigh through glass. Then nothing. Just the faint aftertaste of numbers. A new announcement. Attention all listeners. We will now begin nightly distribution of dreams. Please remain in bed while the following items are allocated. You feel drawers sliding open inside your chest. Soft shapes being placed inside. An empty photograph. A wet matchbook. The smell of winter. Tonight's theme is abandoned stations. If you wake near any water, please report it to your nearest mirror. Someone hums a lullaby that keeps folding in on itself, shorter each time. By the 10th repetition, it's just a single syllable. Fading under your pulse. Purring again. You open your eyes. The dark has texture now, fur, black and endless. A shape sits on the dresser, eyes twin red dots like recording lights. Did you miss the forecast? The cat asks. Its mouth doesn't move, the words come from the radio. Weather's improving. It continues. Less gravity. More echoes. You ask where it's been. Everywhere you looked away from. The cat stretches. Its tail drags sparks across the air, tracing symbols that smell faintly of thunder and milk. Keep listening, it says, and dissolves into static. In the event you begin hearing yourself from another angle, the host recites. Do not answer. Echoes are notoriously clingy. A faint murmur rises from under the bed, hundreds of voices rehearsing sentences you haven't said yet. You can make out one. I'm fine, thank you, just tired. Then another. It's just work stress. Then a third, almost whispered. The broadcast is feeding. The mattress vibrates like a slow heartbeat. The radio clears its throat again. That concludes our safety reminder. A tape begins playing. Background wind, boots crunching gravel. Someone narrates between breaths. Station none reconnaissance. Found residual signal around mile marker infinity. Sky appears liquid. Birds singing in Morse again. Requesting backup or coffee. The tape stutters. Update. Encountered object resembling moon but closer. Object humming. Possibly aware. End log. The wind keeps looping that last word. Aware, aware, aware. When the sound stops, you notice condensation on the inside of the window spelling. We heard you. At 4:59, the signal softens. The host sounds almost human now. Listeners, we're entering quiet hour. If you need to detach, now's the time. The air itself thickens into a low hum. Every heartbeat feels slower, stretched like taffy. You catch yourself whispering the words with the host without knowing them first. Silence isn't absence, he says. It's rehearsal. The walls sigh again. For a moment, everything is perfectly still, and you think maybe that's the end. But the broadcast doesn't end. The radio clicks once, twice. Then, correction. We're still live. Music starts. A single sustained note, neither sad nor hopeful, just present. Outside the window, the horizon folds in half. Light pours upward instead of down. The host continues, whispering now. If you're still awake, congratulations. You've crossed into the listener's frequency. That means you can hear us even when we're not speaking. You feel it. The quiet between words breathing. Something vast listening back. Please rate your experience tonight, the host says brightly. Press 1 if you felt watched. 2 if you felt remembered. 3 if you dissolved. You don't press anything. The radio hums, satisfied. Perfect. That counts as consent. A final chime plays, gentle, melodic, like an elevator arriving between dimensions. Sweet dreams, says the voice. We'll file them accordingly. The static should fade then, but it doesn't. It lingers, slow, syrup thick, a hum that swells in the chest and curls around the edges of thought. You think the transmission ended, yet the room is still breathing. You can hear the wallpaper shifting, as if it's remembering what color it used to be. A soft scratch. Not in the radio this time, inside the pillow, tracing words you can almost make out. Each stroke matches your pulse. Then a voice, thinner now, maybe the host or maybe the cat, sighs. Still awake? That's fine. The long broadcast hasn't begun yet. The air bends. The ceiling unfolds like a film reel burning backward. Outside, the rain stops mid-drop. Every sound falls into rewind until only one remains, a steady purr that's not quite sound, not quite thought. You're standing somehow, though you don't remember rising. The floor stretches like a slow exhale. The walls pull apart to reveal a corridor made of static and half-finished echoes. You walk. Each step clicks like a tape recorder starting over. You pass rooms filled with breathing furniture. Somewhere, a phonograph plays the sound of an empty theater applauding nothing. You keep walking because the radio told you to once, and it feels impolite to stop. The cat appears again, sitting on a floating desk that hums like an unplugged amplifier. Its eyes are wider now, orange discs cutting through the dim. You ask what this place is? It tilts its head. Just between frequencies, where the dreams that wake too early go to rest. You tell it you're not dreaming. It blinks once, slow. Of course you're not. Nobody dreams anymore. We outsource that now. Behind it, cabinets unfold in impossible directions. Labels drift across the drawers, unsent messages, forgotten hunger, hands that almost knocked. The cat leaps onto a shelf and bats open one labeled you. Inside, an old cassette player clicks alive. Your voice begins to play, a laugh, a whisper, then silence. The cat listens politely, tail twitching in time. You used to be louder, it says. You should fix that. The floor hums. The desk is gone. You're back in bed, but the sheets are different, heavier, coarser, like woven static. The radio glows faintly violet. A new voice breathes through, calm and unreadable. Listener, this is the extended service. You've stayed tuned past sleep. Thank you for your endurance. The sound thickens again. You can feel it vibrating behind your teeth. Your heartbeat syncs with the broadcast. The radio begins describing things you haven't done yet. How you'll wake up, pour coffee that isn't there, answer a knock that never comes. Each sentence finishes just before you think it. You try to move, but the air has a texture now, like velvet soaked in light. The walls fade to dim blue. The cat's purr returns, threaded through the signal like a bass line made of breathing. We're almost at the deep end, says the host. Do not fight the fade. The frequency will remember you. You close your eyes. The sound doesn't stop, it deepens. Images drift through, halls filled with jars of whispering air, oceans that breathe like lungs, clocks melting into puddles that tick underwater. Everything is slow, heavy, inevitable. You hear someone humming the station jingle again, but stretched so long it's almost a chant. Then the cat's voice, right beside your ear. You can rest now. The broadcast will finish itself. And for a moment, you almost believe it. But the radio still murmurs, faint, endless. Your name, the weather, the quiet between worlds. It keeps talking long after you've stopped listening. And somewhere, in the static, something else starts listening back. The radio keeps whispering, a long, slow exhale that slides into your dreams like warm fog. You think it's static until you start hearing words again. Not from the speaker this time, between your breaths. Tiny syllables nesting inside the rhythm of air. They talk about simple things at first. Someone sweeping the horizon. The last cloud of the evening folding itself away. Then it turns more personal. They say your name. They mention how long it's been since you changed the sheets. How the clock is 2 minutes wrong on purpose. How the dust above the wardrobe has learned to hum your heartbeat. You open your eyes and find yourself outside the room. It's still night, but the darkness is softer, layered like silk. A narrow hallway glows with television light that has no source. At the far end stands the cat, tail curling like smoke. It steps aside to reveal a doorway made of mirrors, each one fogged over and vibrating faintly, as if whispering among themselves. The cat nods. You step through. You fall without falling, more like the world moves upward, slowly swallowing you. When you land, the ground is paper. Every step leaves faint words that immediately rewrite themselves into static. In the distance, towers of radios hum at different speeds. The air smells like rain on copper. A voice echoes from every direction. You've entered the listener's bureau. Please state your memory. You try to answer, but your words turn into smoke. The smoke drifts upward, condensing into another you standing across the room. They smile. You don't. You're late, they say. The frequency's been waiting. You ask who runs this place. They point at the ceiling. The ceiling blinks. The blink is slow, planetary. Behind the glow you see faint outlines of millions of faces, sleeping, dreaming, listening. All connected by threads of hum that pulse like jellyfish veins. Your other self reaches into the air and pulls down a strand. It trembles, making the sound of a lullaby played backward. Everything we hear builds the dark, they say. Don't let it go quiet. That's when it notices. They vanish, leaving the strand dangling, warm, still vibrating. You wrap it around your wrist. The sound crawls under your skin. Now the radio is inside you. You can feel it broadcasting through your bones. Every thought becomes a frequency, and every frequency returns as a whisper slightly different. The whispers start shaping themselves into familiar voices. People you once loved, people you almost met, all murmuring the same thing. Sleep deeper. You let yourself sink. The ground folds upward, becoming a wave of sound that carries you into another room. Here the cat sits on a velvet chair beneath a single lamp. On the table, a cup of coffee that steams without heat, a half-eaten biscuit that occasionally sighs. The cat looks older now, for Matt was static. You've made it far, it says. Most fade before the halfway point. You ask how far there is to go. The cat considers. Until the end of the frequency. It replies, which is wherever you stop hearing it. You tell it you can't tell anymore when the sound ends. Good, it says. That means it's working. From somewhere unseen, the host coughs. The microphone crackles. We interrupt this quiet moment for an unscheduled reality test. Please count your fingers. You look down. There are more than before, and less when you blink. The cat chuckles softly. You passed. 4 now. The lights dim. The cat begins grooming its paw. With each lick, a new corridor opens in the air, thin sheets of light unfolding, each one containing a different version of you sleeping in a different bed. Some younger, some older, all tuned to the same low hum. You walk through one at random and find yourself back in your own room. Except the wallpaper breathes again, and the window overlooks an ocean made of radio static. You can hear waves breaking in perfect rhythm with your pulse. This is Station None, says the voice from nowhere. We are proud to present the final half of tonight's broadcast, the drift sequence. The tone drops lower. The words stretch. The spaces between them grow comfortable. Every breath matches the rhythm of the slow heartbeat inside the sound. You lie back. The bed feels bottomless, as though you're being lowered onto soft magnets. Through the half-light you see faint shapes above, letters, maybe stars, maybe both, drifting like lazy fireflies spelling nonsense phrases. You're safe, keep floating, we're still here. The cat's purr fades in again, steady and long. It syncs with the hum until they're indistinguishable. Your mind drifts, untethered, replaying fragments. Dust deciding to exist, elevators and ceilings, halls filled with jars of light. They fold together, blur, settle. The host speaks one last time, but now the voice is half yours. Thank you for staying beyond silence. This part of the program has no end. When the music stops, the sleep continues. When the sleep ends, the signal hums without you. The cat stretches, a silhouette of warmth at your feet. It yawns, eyes glowing like twin embers. Dream gently, it says. And if you hear us again tomorrow night, pretend you don't. The purr deepens until it becomes the world's only sound, slow, circular, infinite. The last thing you feel is the vibration of that hum, threading through your heartbeat, until you can't tell which is which. Then nothing. Just the comfortable, endless static of being almost asleep. End of midnight frequency. The Hotel at the End of Gravity. A bedtime broadcast for anyone still pretending to fall asleep. It starts with an elevator that shouldn't exist. I found it one night at the edge of the city, half hidden between two buildings arguing about rent. No sign, no button, no reflection in the glass beside it, just a brushed metal door humming faintly, as if it were thinking about opening. The air there was too still. Even the traffic noise thinned out, like sound itself didn't want to intrude. I stood watching the door until the streetlights began to flicker, their glow bending inward toward the metal like moths choosing a god. Then, without my help, the door slid open. Inside, there was a carpet patterned with constellations I didn't recognize and soft jazz leaking from nowhere, as if the building itself were exhaling music. A sign on the far wall read, in polite gold script, "Welcome, esteemed guest, to the Hotel at the End of Gravity. Please check your belongings and your physics at the desk." I remember smiling at that. It felt like something written by someone trying too hard to be charming. The woman at the front desk looked like she hadn't slept in years but had made peace with it. Her smile was perfectly aligned, but her eyes never blinked at the same time. "Name?" she asked. I said it, or something close to it. The word came out like static, rearranged halfway through. She nodded as if she'd heard it before and wrote it in a ledger that seemed to breathe when the pen moved. "Lovely," she said. "You're in room 0. Elevators are imaginary but functional." She handed me a key, heavy brass, warm to the touch. It hummed faintly in my palm. "Breakfast is served when you remember it," she added, then turned to the next invisible guest. The lobby stretched upward without stopping. Chandeliers swayed in slow, deliberate arcs as though underwater. A grand piano played itself in the corner, missing just enough notes to sound human. I didn't walk toward the stairs. The floor moved me instead, gently sliding like an escalator dream. I blinked, and I was standing outside a door marked simply 0. I don't recall taking the key from my pocket, but it turned easily. Inside, the room was luxurious in an apologetic sort of way. A bed large enough for several regrets. A window looking out onto a city that floated slightly above itself. The ceiling seemed to inhale with me. There was a note on the nightstand. "Welcome, guest. Do not jump. Gravity is currently out for maintenance." I laughed. Too loudly, I think, because that was easier than wondering what it meant. Then I looked out the window and saw everything rising. Shoes. Lampposts. A lone pigeon flapping in perfect stillness as the air carried it upward like a saint. The world had let go. I opened the window. The air was thick, syrupy, moving in lazy spirals. Furniture floated past, tables, umbrellas, papers folding and unfolding themselves like they couldn't decide on meaning. And then I saw a cat drifting by in a dining chair, a pair of round sunglasses perched on its face. "First time?" it asked. I froze. I thought it was a joke of the mind, sleep deprivation, oxygen, something. But it tilted its head as though waiting for an answer. I nodded. "Don't panic," it said. "Gravity's on strike again. Happens every few eternities." "Who's management?" I asked before I could stop myself. The cat pointed upward toward nothing. "Whoever's still listening." Then it yawned, stretched in midair, and drifted into the haze. I closed the window, but the room kept moving. Slowly, almost politely, as if the building itself were breathing me upward. The bed hummed. The floor tilted. Somewhere beyond the walls, something large exhaled. I stepped into the hall. The air was colder. A bellhop floated past upside down, carrying a tray of teacups that refused to spill. He tipped his hat as he drifted by. Morning turbulence, he said. Please fasten your expectations. Doors opened as I passed. One room spilled a faint rain of paper poetry. Another glowed red with the shadow of dancers moving without sound. In one, I thought I saw someone who looked like me sitting at a desk, head tilted, waiting for something to happen. The walls felt warm beneath my hand, almost pulsing. An intercom crackled above me. Attention, valued guests. Gravity is operating at 17%. Please refrain from existential leaps until further notice. Complimentary flotation devices are available in the lobby. The voice paused just long enough to let the silence answer. Then the speaker clicked off. The elevator waited beside me. I hadn't pressed the button, yet the doors slid open anyway with a sound halfway between a sigh and an apology. The cat was there again, now wearing a bellhop cap. Going down? It asked. Is there a down? Not anymore, it said, pressing a button labeled probably. The elevator began to hum. The walls flickered like film trying to remember its own order. The jazz returned, but backward this time, each note bending slightly too long. Why are you here? The cat asked. I don't know, I said. Good, it replied. That's the only qualification. When the doors opened, we were somewhere else entirely, a cafe suspended in midair. Tables drifted, anchored by thin chains that vanished into mist. Waiters floated between them, pouring coffee that hovered obediently in the air. I sat, because the chair expected me to. A menu appeared on the table. Continental breakfast, dreams lightly buttered with logic. Full gravity, not recommended for beginners. Espresso of enlightenment, comes with sudden realization and mild nausea. I chose the espresso. It arrived humming Beethoven through the steam. I drank and immediately felt the memory of almost understanding something important, just out of reach. The cat passed by with a tray of pastries. Careful, it said. That stuff sticks. What is it? Momentum, it replied. In liquid form. I looked around the cafe. People, if they were people, floated at their tables, murmuring softly to one another, though their mouths didn't move. Outside the windows, the horizon began to bend upward, as if trying to swallow the sky. The cat landed lightly beside my table. Its fur bristled. You should go, it said. Why? It's starting early this time. Before I could ask what it meant, the lights flickered, once, twice, and the floor lurched beneath me. Cups slid silently across tables, but the coffee didn't spill, it simply stayed in place, trembling like frightened glass. A bell sounded in the distance, deep, heavy, and wet, like metal struck underwater. The cat's voice came from behind me now. Don't look down. Naturally, I did. The cafe floor was gone. Beneath us was open air, or something worse than air. Layers of the hotel, floating, inverted, repeating endlessly. And between them, shapes that moved too smoothly to be human. They climbed the spaces between floors, their hands reversed, their faces missing all the features except a mouth that whispered things I couldn't hear but could somehow feel. I backed away, but the cat only watched, unbothered. They're just the guests who stayed too long, it said. They forgot which way was out. What happens to them? The cat smiled, or at least showed teeth. Their management now. The floor shuddered again. The lights flared to white. When my eyes cleared, the cat was gone. I don't know how I got to the ballroom, but I was there, standing among a crowd of floating bodies dressed in formal wear that didn't fit quite right. The chandelier spun in a lazy circle, dripping molten glass that never touched the ground. On the stage stood a figure wearing a suit made of equations, its outline blurring at the edges. "Esteemed guests," it said in 12 voices layered into one, "we thank you for your patience during this period of gravitational instability." Its hands folded, bending like reflections. "In the meantime, please refrain from confronting your doubles or attempting to redefine up." Someone nearby whispered, "What if we already did?" The figure turned its head toward the sound. "Then you have my condolences," it said. The air trembled. The chandelier clapped once. Music began, a slow, uneven waltz. The guests moved as if pulled by invisible strings, rising and turning, faces blank and radiant. Something brushed against my shoulder, a hand cold and rubbery. I turned, but the person attached to it was me. My face. My mouth forming the same apology I didn't say. I ran. The hallway stretched ahead, impossible, doors multiplying faster than I could count. Each one whispered in passing, "Stay. Stay. Stay." I burst through the first door that gave way. The roof. The city below was bending, folding, pieces of it peeling off and floating away. The moon hung low and trembling, like it was about to cry. The cat was waiting near the edge, grooming its paw. "Beautiful, isn't it?" it said. I didn't answer. "It's about to invert," it added casually. I looked up, or maybe down, and saw a crack forming in the sky, thin as a smile. Through it, another world stared back, same city, upside down, glowing like a pulse under glass. "What's happening?" I asked. "When gravity's gone too long," said the cat. "The reflection tries to replace the original." Pieces of light began to fall, delicate, deliberate. Every one that landed became something that shouldn't exist, a clock bleeding backward, a bird made of paper screaming in a human voice, a child's drawing breathing through its crayon lines. One of them landed in my hand. A tiny fish of folded paper. It whispered my name, the correct one, the one I hadn't said, and then disintegrated into ash. "They never last," the cat murmured. "Too much memory." Far below, the city tilted again. Whole streets began to slide upward, houses turning silently in the air. People leaned out of windows, waving like tourists leaving a cruise. The cat stood. "Time to go." "Where?" "Lobby. Basement. Dream. It's all the same here." It jumped. I followed. For a moment, we fell upward. I hit the lobby floor and kept falling through it. The air turned thick and cold, full of whispers that weren't words. My body slowed without stopping, drifting through layer after layer of the same hotel repeating forever. The chandeliers here were bones. The pianos played themselves with no keys left. And then I stopped moving. I was standing again, somehow, in front of the reception desk. The clerk looked different now. Her smile was wider. Her eyes were the wrong color, reflecting not me but the empty hallway behind. "Welcome back," she said. "Checkout is when you remember who you were." I looked down. I was holding a suitcase I didn't recognize. When I opened it, it was full of small, sleeping versions of myself. The clerk's expression softened. "Ah," she said. "Your baggage. What do I do with it?" "Most guests let it float away," she said, gesturing to the glass ceiling above. Hundreds of glowing suitcases drifted there like stars, bumping gently against the edges of the sky. I let go. Mine rose to join them. Something inside me felt lighter, and worse for it. The clerk handed me a receipt. The words shimmered, payment accepted in wonder. But underneath, almost invisible, another line appeared as the ink dried. Non-refundable. I wandered the halls again. The cafe was gone. The rooms whispered. The air pressed softly against my chest, like the hotel itself was trying to slow my heartbeat. One door stood slightly open. Inside, a garden suspended in darkness, flowers blooming upside down, petals glowing faintly blue. At its center, a fountain murmured with no water, only orbits of tiny glass marbles, each containing a reflection of me. A sign read, "Do not disturb the reflections. They bruise easily." I reached out anyway. One marble floated up, bumping my fingers, trembling. Inside, a miniature me pressed its palm to the glass. Then the others began to spin. A low hum filled the air, the sound of an elevator starting somewhere beneath the earth. The marbles turned faster, light spilling out, and I realized I could hear voices in them. My voices. Every version of me I had ever been, whispering, "Stay. Stay. Stay." The cat's voice drifted through the static. "Sorry, guest. The hotel's rebooting. Happens every dream cycle." The floor cracked like ice. Light poured out, and the garden folded in on itself like paper. I woke up, maybe, on the same bed as before. The clock said 3:07 a.m. The key hummed faintly on the nightstand. The note still warned, "Do not jump." Outside, the city floated calmly. The pigeon was back where it belonged, pretending not to remember. I rolled over. The pillow purred. I froze. The cat was there, smaller now, curled beside my face. "Did we fix it?" I whispered. "Define fix." I didn't answer. It yawned, showing too many teeth. "Good guess," it murmured, curling tighter. I stared at the ceiling. The breathing had stopped. That should have comforted me. It didn't. From far below, the elevator hummed again, that same polite, eternal tone, rising through every floor. Then came the sound of a bell. One ring. I still don't know if it meant check-in or check-out. But the air shifted. The bed tilted. And in the corner of the room, the ceiling started to crack, the same thin, glowing line I'd seen in the sky. Something on the other side began to knock. Slow, polite, patient. I wanted to scream, but the room exhaled first. Now the air hums in rhythm with my heartbeat. I think the hotel is learning the pattern. If I sleep, it will know. If I don't, I'll keep floating. The cat lifts its head. "Good," it whispers. "Stay awake. Someone has to manage the place." When I woke again, it wasn't morning. The clock said 3:07 a.m. just like before. I think it always will. The cat was gone. The air tasted new but stale, like someone had replaced it while I slept. The note on the table now said, "Welcome back. Complimentary déjà vu included with every stay." I sat up. The ceiling crack was gone, smoothed over like an apology. But I could still hear something faint, a ticking that didn't match the clock. Not fast, not slow. Just deliberate. I got up. The carpet felt softer, too soft, like walking on breath. When I opened the door, the hallway waited exactly as I remembered it, except it was breathing. Every few seconds, the walls seemed to sigh inward. Down the hall, the elevator dinged. No one came out. I told myself not to move. Then, of course, I did. The elevator doors opened before I reached them, polite as ever. The brass key in my hand vibrated once, like a small heartbeat, and the elevator accepted it. The panel had no numbers now, only a single glowing word. Beneath. I pressed it before thinking. The doors closed. The air turned syrup-thick. Somewhere in the walls, a voice whispered names that sounded almost like mine. When the elevator stopped, the doors opened into a basement, a sublobby. The lights flickered in perfect rhythm, exactly 4 times each. Between flickers, things moved. I couldn't catch them looking. The floor here wasn't carpet but something dark and reflective, not water, but not solid either. Each step I took left a faint ring of sound, like glass struck gently. There was a desk. Someone stood behind it, not the same clerk as before. This one was shorter or taller, depending on where I blinked. Its uniform fit perfectly but seemed to change color with each breath. "Welcome back," it said. The voice was almost kind. "We've prepared your feedback form." It slid a single sheet toward me, blank except for one line. "How long have you been falling?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The pen wrote something by itself. When I looked again, the page said, "Long enough to forget the direction." The clerk smiled. "Excellent. Management appreciates clarity." I turned to leave, but the elevator was gone. The hall behind me had been replaced by an expanse of doors, all black, all marked with symbols that looked like constellations collapsing. "Where does this go?" I asked. "Down," said the clerk. "Everything important eventually goes down." The floor pulsed once. The air grew heavier. Somewhere nearby, water, or gravity, was leaking. I walked. Each door I passed opened just slightly, whispering a memory. One showed my childhood bedroom, half-lit, empty except for the bed I never made. Another showed me sitting in the same hotel, watching myself write the same moment down. A third was completely dark, except for breathing. When I reached the last door, it opened by itself. Inside was an observation deck overlooking nothing. The nothing shimmered faintly, like heat over sand, but deeper, a black so complete it made sound go quiet. And floating in it were hundreds of objects, teacups, typewriters, chandeliers, and people. Some were whole. Some weren't. A low hum filled the air. The same note I'd heard from the elevator, stretched into infinity. Then a voice behind me. "Room service." I turned. The clerk, or maybe another one, stood in the doorway holding a silver tray. On it, a glass dome covering a small, rotating sphere. Inside the sphere, cities folded and unfolded like origami lungs. "Your order," said the clerk. "I didn't order anything." "You remembered it," they corrected. "That's close enough." The dome clicked open. A faint breeze swept out, cold, sweet, and wrong. The sphere pulsed once, then spoke in a whispering chorus. "Return to your floor." The clerk bowed and backed away, fading as if distance itself forgot how to measure. I looked back at the void beyond the window. The floating figures had shifted closer. Some wore hotel uniforms. Others wore my face. The hum grew louder. I realized it wasn't the elevator anymore. It was the hotel's heartbeat. Slow, deep, patient. I took one step forward and the gravity changed. The floor tilted, not enough to fall, just enough to suggest the idea. The figures outside twitched in unison, like puppets catching the same thought. Something inside the walls began to move. I could hear it dragging itself upward through the floors, scraping metal against time. Each impact sent a tremor through the room. Dust fell upward, not down. Then the intercom crackled. "Attention, guests," said a voice I didn't recognize. "We hope your stay has been memorable. We remind you, memory is payment. A pause. Then, softly. Balance overdue. The lights died. Darkness, thick as gravity itself, pressed against me. I reached for the key in my pocket, but it wasn't there. Instead, something cold and smooth. A tag. Room 0, staff access. I wanted to scream, but the air wouldn't let me. When the lights flickered back, I was standing in the lobby again. Empty. Perfect. Restored. Only now, there was no clerk behind the desk. I stepped closer. A mirror hung where the guest book used to be. My reflection was smiling. It blinked slower than me. The bell on the counter rang once. My reflection tilted its head. "You're late," it said. "For what?" "Shift change." I felt the tag in my pocket pulse. Somewhere upstairs, a door opened, and another version of me stepped out to check in. The reflection smiled wider. "Gravity's back," it said. "Someone has to keep it in place." The chandeliers began to hum again. The piano resumed its broken song. The elevator doors slid open. Inside, the cat's bellhop cap sat on the floor, still warm. The display read, "Lobby beneath repeat." I walked toward it, because that's what guests do. When the doors closed, the voice returned, gentle as always. "Thank you for choosing the hotel at the end of gravity. We hope you enjoyed your stay. If you experienced any permanent existential distortions, please contact management." The elevator began to rise, or fall. I can't tell anymore. All I know is that the hum follows me now, even when I'm awake. Sometimes, when the world feels light for no reason, I hear the bell. One ring. Always polite. Always patient. And I realize I'm not leaving. Just checking in again. End of the hotel at the end of gravity. The museum that watches itself. A late-night broadcast for anyone who still believes in silence. I arrived because of the rain. It wasn't heavy, just that kind of thin, deliberate drizzle that decides your plans for you. The cab driver had already vanished before I could pay. Only the glow of the museum's sign remained, pulsing faintly through the mist. The city museum of everything that remains. I'd never heard of it. But the doors were open, and the rain had opinions, so I stepped inside. The lobby smelled of old photographs and something sterile, like breath trapped in glass. No one at the counter. Only a small metal plaque that read, "Exhibit begins when acknowledged." I said, "Hello?" The lights responded, one by one, humming awake like an orchestra tuning itself. Soft classical music started from nowhere, then faded into static. A calm voice replaced it, low and clear. "Welcome, guest. We're pleased you came in out of the weather." I looked around. The ceiling disappeared into darkness. Hallways stretched in several directions, each labeled in small brass letters: echoes, artifacts, unfinished exhibits, observation. The voice continued. "This museum preserves what the city forgets. Please keep your memories visible at all times." I tried to laugh, but it came out quiet. There was a coat check desk nearby. Behind it hung dozens of coats, all identical to mine. Each one still dripping. The Hall of Echoes. The first corridor was narrow, lined with speakers shaped like human ears. Each whispered something different: laughter, apologies, weather reports, prayers. Every few steps, one of them repeated my own voice back at me, slightly delayed. When I reached the end, there was a mirror. Etched across its surface, "All recordings are voluntary." My reflection didn't move when I did. It tilted its head instead, as if to ask a question it already knew the answer to. I blinked. It didn't. Artifacts. The next room looked like every museum I'd ever been in. Glass cases, numbered placards, polite lighting. But every item inside the cases was familiar. A coffee cup chipped exactly the same way as one I'd broken years ago. A watch stopped at a time that used to mean something. Even a notebook identical to the one I lost on a train, still open to a half-finished sentence. I leaned closer. The handwriting was mine. A faint reflection appeared on the glass, not behind me, but inside it. A curator, maybe? They wore gloves and a polite expression that didn't reach their eyes. "Don't touch," they said without sound. Their lips moved too slow, as if the air inside the case was thicker than mine. I stepped back, dizzy. The lights dimmed slightly, like the room was breathing. A placard near the door caught my eye. Artifact number 291, the visitor recognizing their own absence. I looked for a camera. There wasn't one. But I could feel the red light of one blinking anyway. Observation deck. The next gallery opened into a wide, circular hall. Rows of chairs faced a massive pane of glass. Beyond it, darkness shifting like deep water. I sat down out of habit. The glass brightened faintly. A spotlight revealed a figure on the other side of it, seated just like me, same chair, same posture. When I raised my hand, they hesitated, then raised theirs half a second later. Not quite a reflection. An echo, slightly out of sync. The overhead speaker crackled. Our live exhibit demonstrates reciprocal observation. The more you notice it, the more it notices you. The figure tilted its head. So did I. It smiled first. The glass pulsed once, a low, wet sound, like a heartbeat through concrete. Then the lights in my room flickered. When they steadied, there were 2 figures behind the glass. Then 3. Each a little less detailed than the last, but all of them looking directly at me. "You may proceed," the speaker whispered. "They already have. The children's wing. I didn't mean to go in there. It just happened." The sign above the doorway read, "Please remove your shoes. The floor remembers footprints." Inside, tiny mannequins sat at desks arranged like a classroom. They were painted gray, eyeless, smiling. Each held a crayon drawing, me, standing exactly where I was now. A low chime rang. One of the mannequins turned its head. "Late again," it said, in a child's voice made of static. The others began to hum. The same note as the elevator in the hotel, that low, polite tone that vibrated in my ribs. I backed away. Their heads followed perfectly, humming louder. The door behind me shut by itself. Every mannequin turned its page at once. The sound was like wings. On each new page, the drawings had changed. My outline filling with color, my face darkening, my eyes replaced by small brass plates engraved with numbers. The humming rose until it became unbearable, then stopped. When I looked up, the room was empty. No mannequins. No desks. Just a single small chair in the middle, with my coat neatly folded on it. Still dripping. The security room. The next hallway had no signs, only the faint glow of screens ahead. Rows of monitors showed the museum's exhibits. Every one of them displayed me, entering, leaving, breathing, blinking. Sometimes from angles that didn't exist. A single chair faced the wall of screens. A figure sat in it. I touched their shoulder. They were cold. The monitors blinked once. Every version of me turned at the same time, looking directly at the camera. Then, together, we spoke, through the speakers, through the walls, through the one in the chair. Do not disturb the curator. The lights went out. When they returned, the chair was empty. But my reflection stayed on the screens. Still sitting there. The long gallery. There was no sound here, not even air. Only paintings, endless rows of them, stretching beyond sight. Each canvas showed a room from earlier in the museum, but slightly wrong. Details rearranged. People missing. Myself painted thinner, blurrier, more tired. At the end of the corridor stood a large door labeled, "Exhibit closed for maintenance." Through the keyhole, a faint red light pulsed. I knocked once. The echo came back from everywhere at once. Then, softly, a voice, the same one from the lobby, spoke right behind me. "You've been a wonderful exhibit. Would you like to see the others?" I turned. No one there. Just a velvet rope across the hall that hadn't been there before. A small sign hung from it, "Staff only." Beyond the rope, the air shimmered like heat. Shapes moved slowly in it, people pacing behind invisible glass. Each wore my face. Each held a small audio guide pressed to their ear, whispering my own narration in delay. I stepped closer until my breath fogged the barrier. One of them lifted a hand and pressed it to the same spot. A perfect match. The speaker clicked on again. "This concludes the public tour. To exit, please return to where you began." But the lobby was gone. The atrium of reflections. The hallway folded back into a single vast chamber. Dozens of mirrors hung from the ceiling, turning slowly, reflecting one another endlessly. Each surface shimmered with faint movement, like film still wet from development. I saw myself 100 times over, but not quite. Each reflection was at a slightly different moment. One blinking slower, one smiling faintly, one still soaking wet from the rain outside. Then a familiar shape moved between the mirrors. A cat, pale, long, silent. Its eyes glowed the same dull brass as the placards. It didn't meow. It just stared. "Are you here to see the curator?" I asked. The cat turned its head and began walking, not toward a door, but directly into a mirror. Its body passed through the glass like water. On the other side, it kept walking upside down along the ceiling. My reflection followed it perfectly. I didn't. When I touched the mirror, the surface rippled. Cold. Thin as air. I stepped through. Behind the glass. Silence. Not the absence of sound, the presence of listening. I was standing inside an exhibit case. Outside, the museum stretched on forever. Visitors wandered past, blurred and distant, not seeing me. Every few seconds, one of them stopped, checked a placard, nodded, and moved on. I looked down. A label at my feet read, "Exhibit number 999, the visitor who realized they were always on display." I hit the glass once. No sound. Again. Still nothing. A faint reflection appeared beside mine. The curator. They smiled gently, as if this were normal. "Try not to move too much," they said. "Motion blurs the memory." I screamed, or tried to. The sound came out as static. The curator tilted their head, listening with curiosity, like someone studying an old recording. Then they reached forward and wiped the inside of the glass with a cloth, polishing away the fog of my breath. "Perfect," they whispered. "Preserved." Closing hours. The lights dimmed. A chime echoed through the hall, the same tone from the hotel, polite and endless. The museum of everything that remains is now closing. Please exit through the gift shop. No one moved. The visitors faded first, their outlines thinning until only footsteps remained. The curator turned off the lights one by one. With each, another piece of me disappeared from the glass, an arm, a face, a reflection. Until only my eyes stayed lit, floating faintly in the dark. The curator's voice came through one last time, barely audible. You may rest now. Observation complete. Then blackness. After closing. When I woke, I was back in the rain. The museum behind me, gone. No sign. No building. Only the empty lot, puddles trembling from distant thunder. I touched my pocket. Inside was a small ticket stub, soaked and unreadable. When I unfolded it under the streetlight, the words rearranged themselves. Admit 1, permanent exhibit. The rain stopped. The air felt aware. Somewhere far away, a voice through static whispered, "We hope you enjoyed your visit. We're open whenever you remember us." I looked at the reflection in the puddle. It blinked half a second late, then smiled. And that's when I realized. The museum hadn't vanished. It had simply closed its eyes. End of the museum that watches itself. The Hollow Mile. A bedtime broadcast from somewhere between 3 small towns. They call it the Hollow Mile. Not for distance, but for what it leaves behind. It's a loop that runs between 3 small towns, San Isidro, Santa Maria, and Balite Junction, and somehow manages to always be the same length, no matter how far it stretches. Every morning at 5:47, a blue and white provincial bus pulls out of the depot by the rice mill. The air at that hour still tastes like dew and diesel. Dogs bark once, half asleep. The roosters don't even bother. I've been riding that bus for a month now. Not to get anywhere. Just to feel something move. The driver's name is Lito. That's what the name tag says, though the letters look repainted too many times. His cap always sits low enough to cast his eyes in shadow. He greets everyone the same way, one nod, one faint hum, no ticket punch. "Round trip?" he asks. And I always nod. We start through San Isidro crossing first. The bakery's already open. The smell of pan de sal sneaks through the cracked window, warm and dusty. A few vendors wave from their tricycles, faces soft in the dawn haze. Past that, the road widens into sugar fields. The bus shudders, breathes, and climbs towards Santa Maria Ridge. Up there, the fog spills over the hills like milk boiling over. You can see the whole valley at once, the roofs, the smoke, the thin silver line of the river. Then Balite Junction. Always Balite last. It's not really a town. Just a wide curve where the highway meets an old bridge. There's a waiting shed with cracked blue paint and a mango tree that's been struck by lightning but refuses to fall. Every trip, it looks the same. The same Jeep parked crooked by the tree. The same stray dog sleeping under the bench. The same faint echo of church bells, even when there's no church nearby. Lito slows down just enough to make the suspension sigh, then turns the wheel. The bus groans once, like it's remembering something, and the loop begins again. It used to feel comforting, the rhythm of it, the predictability. But lately, things have started slipping sideways. The first time was small. At San Isidro, the bakery was closed. The windows dark, the smell gone. It wasn't a holiday. It wasn't Sunday. When I asked Lito, he said, "Maybe they moved." But when we came around again, 20 minutes later, the bakery was open. People queued at the counter. Steam poured out the door. And the same baker waved at us like we'd never passed. The next day, at Santa Maria, there were children flying kites near the ridge. Bright cloth triangles cutting through the fog. The day after that, they were gone. The kites, too. On the third morning, the road dipped and the fog cleared just enough for me to see another bus ahead of us. Blue and white. Same number on the plate. It was parked sideways in the road, hazards blinking slow. Lito braked hard, muttered something that sounded like Inaku. Then, from inside that other bus, its horn honked 3 short bursts. Our bus answered, same pattern. A perfect echo. And the lights flickered. When they came back, the road was empty. No bus. No tracks. Just mist closing in where it had been. I told myself I was dreaming. But dreams don't smell like gasoline. After that, the days blurred. Passengers changed faces but never seats. The woman with the basket always took the 4th row, right window. The boy with the folded map never unfolded it. A man with a miner's hat sometimes sat by the door, always humming the same broken tune. They weren't strangers exactly. They were placeholders. People shaped like memory. One morning, the boy tapped my shoulder and asked, "Have you ever tried walking?" "Where to?" I said. "Between the stops," he answered. "Sometimes the road talks back." I laughed it off. But the way he said it, soft, certain, like he'd already tried, followed me through the rest of the ride. That afternoon I did try. I got off at Balite Junction, pretending to stretch my legs. Lito nodded without surprise. He always knew before I did. The air outside smelled green and tired. The rice paddies shimmered gold, insects skating across the surface. I walked along the road until the sound of the bus faded. 10 minutes, maybe 15. My footsteps felt too loud, like the earth was listening. When I turned around, the bus was there again. Parked by the mango tree. Engine running. Doors open. Inside, my seat was empty. Lito raised a hand in greeting from the driver's window. "Round trip?" he called. And before I could answer, I was already climbing back on. Something changed after that. The ride started feeling heavier, as if the bus were climbing even on flat ground. At Santa Maria, fog crawled through the windows like water finding cracks. At San Isidro, the bakery sold bread that tasted faintly of river water. At Balite, the dog lifted its head for the first time, and I realized it didn't have eyes. Just 2 smooth, pale sockets where the world reflected wrong. That night I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt the vibration of the engine through my pillow. Every time I breathed out, I swore I could hear the brakes hiss somewhere in the distance. When I checked the clock, it said 5:47 a.m. Always 5:47. A few days later, a new passenger joined. Middle-aged, wearing a jacket too warm for the season. He smiled like someone who recognized everyone on the bus, even me. When we reached Balite, he leaned toward me and whispered, "You remember her?" I didn't know what he meant. "The one who used to sit by the window," he said. "Always carried a red thermos." There was no one like that. But when I looked at the empty seat beside the boy with the map, I saw a small dent in the cushion, as if someone had just stood up. The man nodded toward it. "She missed her stop," he said. Then he looked away, like that explained everything. The next loop, the seat was gone entirely. just smooth metal where the cushion had been. I tried taking a tricycle once, out of curiosity. Paid the driver extra to bring me to the next town over, somewhere beyond Balite. We drove for half an hour under gray skies, past empty rice fields and power lines humming like bees. When I looked up from my phone, the tricycle was parked in front of the bus stop again. Same mango tree. Same shed. Same bus waiting quietly, doors open, as if I'd never left. The tricycle driver turned to me, face blank. "You forgot your change," he said, handing me the exact fare I'd paid him 30 minutes ago. Then he drove off into the fog and didn't make a sound doing it. After that, I stopped pretending to escape. I'd wake up, dress, walk to the depot, and wait for Lito's bus to sigh awake. Sometimes he'd hum old ballads. Sometimes he'd say nothing. Once, I caught him talking softly to the steering wheel, thanking it for keeping the line alive. He must have noticed me watching because he chuckled and said, "Road's like a story. Stop telling it, it forgets the next part." The phrase stuck with me. It felt like a warning disguised as small talk. 2 weeks ago, the bus broke down halfway to Santa Maria. Smoke coiled out from under the hood, thick and sweet. Lito swore under his breath and told everyone to wait while he checked. But when he stepped outside, he didn't crouch or open the engine cover. He just walked into the fog and disappeared. Minutes passed. The passengers murmured softly, some too calm, some too quiet. Then, from the driver's seat, Lito stepped back in. Same cap. Same face. But his shirt was clean again, and the clock above the windshield read 5:47. We were moving before anyone noticed we'd never started the engine. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the only one who remembers the loops. Maybe the others forget each time we turn. Maybe forgetting is how they stay. The boy still brings his folded map. The man still hums. The teacher's seat still smells faintly of chalk. They're echoes of people who must have ridden once and kept thinking about it too long. Maybe that's all memory is. A kind of public transport that doesn't know how to stop. Last night, I sat near the back and watched the reflection in the window instead of the road. The scenery passed in perfect sync until the curve before Balite. Then, in the reflection, I saw the bus keep going straight. No turn, no junction. Just a long stretch of road fading into dark water. In the glass, my reflected self didn't follow. He stayed seated, still staring forward, face calm, eyes open. When I blinked, he was gone, and the seat beside me was damp. This morning, before boarding, I asked Lito what happens if the bus stops. He didn't answer right away. He looked at the horizon where the fog was thickest and said, "Then everything else stops waiting." The bakery woman waved as we passed. Her hand moved slower than it should have, each motion dragging through the air like syrup. By the ridge, the fog was higher, almost solid, shaping itself into distant hills that didn't exist yesterday. The road beneath us shimmered, its paint lines bending slightly inward, closing like parentheses. The bus hummed louder. The seats vibrated. Something metallic sang beneath the floor, a low note that made the glass tremble. Lito gripped the wheel tighter. "Almost full," he whispered. Then, louder to me, "Round trip?" It wasn't a question anymore. Now it's night again. The sky over Balite glows faintly, like a television left on in another room. The dog is gone. The mango tree's shadow stretches across the road, too long for its size. Lito switches off the lights. The bus drifts forward on inertia alone. In the darkness, I can hear the soft murmur of everyone breathing in rhythm. Even me. Outside, something huge and quiet moves beside us, a shape keeping pace in the rice fields, outlined by fireflies. Each time I glance toward it, it rearranges itself, sometimes a bus, sometimes a long spine of light, sometimes nothing at all. The air tastes faintly of metal and dust. I close my eyes. The hum steadies. For a moment, I think I can hear other buses in the distance. Dozens, maybe hundreds, each one looping its own hollow mile, each one full of people who can't quite remember where they were headed. And somewhere among them, one seat stays empty, waiting for whoever tries to leave next. The clock above the windshield flickers. 5:47 a.m. Lito adjusts his cap, humming softly. The fog folds around us like a curtain, sealing the road behind. He glances at me through the mirror, a smile small enough to hide in. "Almost there," he says. "Just one more turn." The bus sighs, grateful, and the world outside exhales with it. When I look out the window, the fields are gone. Only water remains, dark and endless, reflecting the headlights back at us like eyes. And ahead, through the mist, another bus approaches, same make, same color, same everything. We pass each other silently, mirrors brushing mirrors. Inside that other bus, I see myself again, half awake, half smiling, whispering to no one. Round trip. The sound lingers after we've passed, echoing through the fog until it becomes the engine's hum itself. And by the time I close my eyes, the road has already curved. The world resets. The bakery door creaks open. The ridge exhales light. Balite Junction waits, patient as a promise. The hollow mile continues. And somewhere, deep under the steady breath of the bus, a voice older than the road hums back. Keep the line alive. End of the hollow mile.